Hi there, friends. Welcome to the No Small Stories podcast, where we explore paths less traveled with creatives and entrepreneurs from all walks of life and in all stages of their journey. No matter how small you start, your story is always a big deal to us. So let's dive into today's episode and meet our guest. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the No Small Stories podcast. I'm your host, Haleigh Overseth, here with my brother Jonny, and today we are joined by Seamus Corry. Hello, Seamus.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? How you doing, fellow subscribers out there?
Right.
Thank
fellow
you for tuning
Tongarians, yes.
Fellow
Nice to have you,
Tongarians. Thanks, man. Good to see you, Jeff.
We're excited to have you here. So you are a well-being consultant, mental health first aid instructor. You've got the Potentially You project, and you have your Wellbeing with Seamus podcast. You're doing a lot of fun things in the mental health world.
I am. Yeah. And it's all happened kind of for me organically. Let me just kind of give you a backdrop and tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Telling you
that's what you're here for.
Who I am, where I'm from. My story goes back pretty much to the beginning, right? Not the beginning of time, but the beginning of my
time. Yes, is absolutely correct.
Yeah. The beginning of my time on Earth was a very interesting journey for me because very soon after I was born, it was decided for me that I should be a Roman Catholic priest, probably around 1 month or 2 months after I was born, right?
How fun for you.
Yeah, I was selected for that role by the elders in my own family, and I obviously as a 2-month-old baby, I took that responsibility willingly, right? I took it on board. I was fully aware of the responsibility I was taking on board, and it was
go ahead and give me that body of Christ in one hand, and
let's do it. Let's
rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll.
Got my binky in the other, and we're good to go.
This is the reason I was born. This is the reason I came into existence, right? To be the savior for my family, to be the savior for my local community, to be the savior of my own, Christian community and Catholic community, but all
no pressure, right?
Absolutely no pressure at all. So so my whole life growing up in rural Ireland and in the late 1960s, early 1970s was pretty much singular. I was the boy that was born with the silver or golden spoon in his mouth. I had free pass to Wonga World. I had free pass to to
golden ticket. I love it.
The golden ticket. Yeah, I was the golden child, right? So and all my life story centered around being conditioned, being trained as it were, directly or indirectly, and conditioned directly or indirectly to assume that role at a natural evolutionary point in my life. So at 15 and a half, just turned 16, I and 121 other young people of my generation in 1987 headed off to the National Seminary of Ireland to begin our studies for the Roman Catholic priesthood. And for the next 7 years, I had this image of the church because I loved the church so much, and I loved the Catholic Church so much that, and God for me was a very loving God, and it was very, caring God, and a very supportive God. And I took my first steps in my own church. I was very much the fabric of my being, the very air that I breathed, the very oxygen that went into my lungs was laced with Catholicism. So I was, in one words, the perfect candidate, right? Nothing could be further the truth. So when you align yourself with a mission and vision, and when you align yourself with an organization that you feel and believe, has your best interest in heart, then you trust that organization to work on your behalf, right? Your employer, in my case, it was God. under the guise of the Catholic Church in Ireland at that time. And well, I honestly kind of believe that what I entered was nothing short of a Talibanistic type of training, right?
Yeah.
This was Christian SAS training, man. You know, you imagine taking on training for the Marines when they shout at you and they bully you and they cajole you and they haze you and they, really treat you like shit for a couple of years, and they tell you the gate's there if you want to leave, but you can't leave because you've got all this internal pressure on you. You don't like it. You don't like being treated that way, but you can't leave because you've got to do, and you got to just suck it up, really, right? For the good of humanity, while all the while
for the good of humanity, you have to suffer. And isn't that? I mean, that's the part of the Christ crucifixion story that is so very backwards, isn't it?
You gotta suffer, man. You gotta take the pain. You gotta suffer. You gotta suck it up, and and I did that for 7 years, and I came out at the end of 7 years, and as a very green, very shy, very unknowing, worldly unknowing individual, having been cushioned and confined within a very unreal environment for 7 years. And it quickly became, after 1994, when I was ordained, it quickly became clear to me that maybe, as weird as it looked and as weird as it sounded and as weird as the thought was being formed in my head, that maybe I had entered the wrong profession. And as quickly as that thought entered my head, I quickly tried to knock that thought out and said, "Boy, look, I'm here now. I'm ordained. I'm a fully fledged.
I've done it. It's my whole life. It's what I've been
done it.
told.
Yeah, I've achieved it. I've achieved everything. So what else is there to achieve, right? I've done everything else. I've done it. I've achieved my life's work.
I did what I was told I was supposed to do.
I did. I did the whole 9 years. I did the whole thing, right? But inside,
and then also when you quit doing that, there's no like lateral thing. You know what I mean? There's not very many things you can do in the real world other than that. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
Like compared to that. So it's like you're kind of plunging into the unknown because you've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, you are. And that I suppose in Christian terms, I relate a lot to Saul, who later became known as St. Paul, who got knocked off his horse on the way to Damascus and was blinded because he himself thought he was a perfect Jew getting out to kill Christians, right? Because that was his role. He was an assassin, right? And in the same way, I firmly believe that I was the perfect candidate for priesthood. And then when I became one, I was like, whoa, these images and these thoughts and these feelings started to come out of nowhere, because I found myself very lonely. I found myself very isolated. I found myself very alone. I couldn't speak to anybody. I couldn't support. All these thoughts were going around my head, singularly in my head. And honestly, Haleigh and Jonny, I thought I was going mad, right?
Yeah.
I literally thought I was so crazy.
You really do. When you start having those loops of arguments with yourself, right? Of there's an authentic me who would like to express, and there's a me who feels a responsibility to express in a certain way so that others are comfortable, right? And then you start having that self-argument, right? And it becomes very, very toxic and very delusional very quickly.
Yeah, and very isolating and very lone. It's a lonely, dark place to be, right? It's a lonely, dark place to be. Until about 15 months into ministry, after experiencing birth and death, and everything in between, without any real degree of support, without any real degree of collegial, a kind of some of
You feel disconnected, right? Like when you're in that
completely
space, you're
disconnected.
that isolation and disconnection, like
Completely
really.
disconnection, yeah. And the more disconnected and the more isolated it became, the more shut down it became, to the point
Right.
that one morning I remember waking up and simply not wanting to function any longer. Simply not wanting to be here any longer, simply not wanting to do it any longer, simply not believing any longer on what I was doing. And simply not believing that what I was doing was right anyway, right? So, you know, I certainly felt at that particular stage that I actually thought it was probably what I see as an awakening now was very much at that time the beginnings of complete and utter mental collapse. But it was the beginning of my life, as I know it now. I didn't understand that at the time, right? And sometimes we go through shit, right? And we don't understand it until we come out the other side of it. And when we come out the other side of it,
I mean, that's the bitch of it in this human experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, you know,
it is, man. It would be nice to have somebody alongside with you at that particular moment in time, say,
right.
this is, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. So, you know, very, very short space of time, obviously, I was removed from that active duty, as it were, and fully debriefed by the Catholic Church in every sense of that word. I was taken aside, I was giving some counselling.
Yeah.
And the counselling, pretty much for the Catholic Church's point of view, is putting you in a room with two of the top psychologists in the country at that particular time, and they probing you and picking you and asking you questions around. But ultimately, they're trying to answer the question: why didn't the program work? Why didn't the brainwashing program work in this?
As in, you're the issue.
Yeah. You're the exception to the rule. How do we how do we make sure that we can beat down the next one of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was a bit of a wild card, right? And they had to check and see where the circuitry went wrong and what was going on, right?
Where was the misfire in the synapses? How do we?
Yeah, what was going on here, right? So that's a pretty painful process because you don't even have any medication to take you through that or any anesthetic. It was raw and it was in depth and it was, you know, in very much, you know, an in-depth discussion and interrogation. Really, you know, by the end of 6 weeks, I would plead guilty to anything just to stop it from happening. I would plead guilty to anything, and the same with the prisoners, and you know, in those in the remote centres, you know, plead guilty to anything in order to stop the music playing in their head constantly. Right? I was of the same ilk. So at the end of 6 weeks, I kind of put my hands up and say, okay, enough is enough. What are the steps on the table? So the only step for me realistically was to resign from the priesthood, which looking at all the facts and figures and looking at the evidence that was set before me, pretty much they came to the conclusion, these top specialists in their field, that pretty much I didn't have the personality for priesthood. Wow.
Great. Thanks for noticing that.
Yeah.
Now, like I've spent from 2 months old to right now, this moment.
You know, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your candor and your honesty in terms of that subject, albeit at the same juncture, at various junctures throughout my formation and career for priesthood, psychological assessment was taken, and those assessments were written up, and those reports were submitted to the church authorities, which basically concurred with the final report that was done 15 months after I left, that this guy should have never gone down the road of priesthood in the first place.
Well, thanks for the memo, y'all.
You got the memo, right? You got the memo. They got the memo.
Did we not boot you out at 3 months old? Sorry. We were whoops. We meant to. Oopsie.
Yeah, so so we forgot that, right? We forgot to oversight. Sorry about that.
Sorry, right, man. I tell you, bureaucracy is it's a beast.
It's a shit, isn't it?
It's a shit show. It really is. No, that's
it's a shit show. It's a proper shit show, right? And then they got it got very slowly
Wow.
from bad to worse, because after I resigned, then instead of my family and community rounding on me and supporting me and say, yeah, we really
Yep.
appreciate the decision you made, and we could get it, and we'll support you no matter what. Pretty much in a very short space of time after that, I was persona non grata. I became the
Yeah.
black sheep in the family.
Mhm.
I became part of the unspoken.
How dare you make a
Shunned
choice for
almost.
yourself?
Yeah.
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 I-
Yeah,
I-
because we have sort of we have communities around here. They're called Hutterite communities. They're basically just farming communities, but they're all just big, like a little like community or whatever. That kind of, they teach their own kids. They kind of stay on the colony, but they're kind of like that. If you want to leave, you can leave, but then you're shunned. You do not talk to
You
us.
can't
We
come-
do not
yeah.
talk to you.
Yeah.
Your family's here. You do not see them. There's a
Mhm.
lot of kids that would come to my hometown and work for farmers from one of those colonies not far away. And they would basically explain that they're on their own. They're like 17 years old. A farmer gave them a job just so they could live, basically. And then
Wow.
yeah, you have no support. You leave, you basically leave on foot. And if somebody's nice enough to give you a ride to town, then you get a ride to town.
Wow.
It's not a pretty thing. It's very much you are our enemy, stay away.
Well,
Yeah.
it is like, if you don't
Yep.
choose the community and the rules that we
Mm.
set for you, then you are excluded entirely, right?
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
100%. You're 100%. And in my case, that was my lived experience. I was excluded entirely, picture taken down off the wall, no longer spoken about in my own family home, no longer supported, pretty much just
Yeah.
referred to as the spawn of the devil more than once, I think.
well,
yeah.
good for you. You know what?
Yeah.
That's you get a high five from one black sheep to another
Mhm.
for that
There
one.
you go. Get in. And
Okay,
there's
Yeah.
a lot of us around, right? There's a lot of us around.
Yes,
sure.
there are. And a spawn of the devil, I tell you what, wear that with a badge of honor. Right?
Yes,
That's
I do.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get that tattooed across my back.
right. That's yes. I love it. That's a brilliant idea. I want to be there I want live stream you getting that ink. I want to be there to see it.
100%, man. 100%.
I love it.
On every gun.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's how you do it.
Yeah. So, pretty much, soon after that, I was left with no other option but to emigrate from the Republic of Ireland, where I lived at that particular time, because pretty much I didn't have a home, I didn't have a family, I didn't have a set of friends, I had nobody. So pretty much in a very short space of time, within 2 months of resigning, I came to live in the UK. Initially as an immigrant, without papers or without insurance, or without what we class over here in the UK as a national insurance number. So when you have that, you can claim state benefit, and you can have access to resources and support resources to enable you to start your life. So as a newbie, in terms of my immigration status, I had none of that, because in the Republic of Ireland we didn't run with national insurance numbers. So I had to go through the whole process of getting a form of citizenship, which was in itself a really difficult and prolonged process. And at the same time, trying to come to terms with the experience that I've just had, while dealing with the pain of isolation, with the rejection support. And I'll be honest with you, Haleigh and Joe, I thought at that particular juncture it would be better if I wasn't here, because the pain would be no more. I wouldn't have to carry that pain any longer. And
I mean, there's a lot of people who have, it's a thought process that needs to be talked about, right? Like we all have those moments where you feel so isolated and alone that
I was gonna ask you, just because you grew up in this and like this is kind of all you knew, how long did you feel guilt for a long time after this, or not really? Like, did they make you feel like you were the issue? Like, did you believe that at all, or not really?
Yeah, I would say pretty much about 11 years I carried that.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because if it's all you know, I mean, you would have to, that would be in the back of your head all
yeah, I carried that because pretty much my kind of impression about myself was pretty low anyway, and I had pretty much little or no confidence, little or no self-esteem. Everything was my fault. So even if a tree fell somewhere in the Amazon forest,
and nobody was there to hear it, it was still your fault that it fell.
Was still my fault. Yeah, it was still my fault.
And that's what that isolation and those thoughts do to you, though, is to make you think that you have, that your whatever you are that is unacceptable is so bad that you have the power to be so destructive to yourself and to anything around you.
Yeah,
right.
So I had the Midas touch in reverse. So because I firmly believe that anything I touch turns to shit, right? For a long time, right? Whereas Midas believed that anything he touched turned to gold. So I say quite clearly, when I speak to people, I firmly believed, and this was my outlook on life, that anything I turned to or touched turned to shit. But I was also very adamant that I didn't want to go back from whence I came, and I was very much on the forward trajectory, and I wanted everything at once. So I wanted the relationship, I wanted to settle down, I wanted kids, I wanted marriage, I wanted the whole 9 yards, and I pretty much, be careful what you wish for, because it will come through in a very short space of after coming to the UK. I did meet somebody. I did allegedly fall in love.
Allegedly.
Or what I thought was love. We did have 3 wonderful children together, but I was still broken. I was still in bits. I still didn't know who I was. I still didn't know who this person I was. I didn't understand myself. I didn't know what my favorite color was. I didn't know what alcoholic drink I liked to drink. I didn't know what my favorite food was. I pretty much didn't know me. If you're folks.
Well, because you never had that opportunity to get to know a version of you that was the version of you you'd like to be. You just were always told who you were supposed to be, and your preferences didn't matter.
And it's somewhat of a time loss situation.
Absolutely. And let me be very clear. And if my kids are listening, having my 3 children was the best thing I ever did, and I was really blessed, and I was if anything that I did in life, having my 3 kids were a wonderful miracle, and I loved them to bits, and and if they're out there and if they're listening to this, then I want to let them know that I love them, because we currently have no contact, and they're I just love them and care for them, and I'm always thinking about them, and because very, very, very quickly, when you don't know who you are, when you don't know what you're about, again, you fall into that pit of somebody else making decisions for you, somebody else taking the control, and I felt I had no control of myself, which led to a breakdown in the marriage, which led to separation, and eventually to divorce and estrangement from my 3 children. And when I found myself in that position, I'll be honest with you, for the 3rd time in my life, I thought, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in this position again. I can't believe.
Haven't I done this before?
Haven't I done this? Haven't I done this before, right?
And how have I not learned yet how not to anymore? And don't you just start the loops of beating yourself up again even more? You're in a bad place already. How do I make this more my fault? How do I torture myself more over this?
Absolutely. Let's blame myself a little bit more. Let's stick the dagger in a little bit deeper. Let's stab myself on the side and say,
I tell you, that scarlet letter, right? It's a true thing.
It is a true thing, right? So at that point in my life, I found myself alone and truly alone. But this time with a little experience, and this time with a job and a career, and this time with a little bit more confidence about me. So I set about, after my first marriage broke down, to actually ask the fundamental questions. Who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
What do I want? What makes me happy? What is the
Yeah,
highest joy that gets me really lit up? Where's the
absolutely,
best energy that I can be in so that I can actually
absolutely.
give it out?
What is the best form of myself that I can offer to the world, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And in so doing, who am I? Who am I to myself, and who can I potentially be hold on to that word, potentially be to
Yeah.
others. Right? Okay, you get where I'm going with this?
Get where you're going with it. I'm picking up
So
what you're putting down. I like it.
yeah, so I
Nag it
pretty
with my
much
tongues.
thank you very much. If I had a set of tongues right now, let's look at the
There you go.
there you go. I've got immersion. You can take tongues with you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
I'm just saying. So pretty much, I went on a journey of discovery. I set about uh, realizing the mission of getting to know me, getting to know the person who I was, right? Because I did not want to repeat the wheel. I did not want any longer to, I wanted to break this cycle. In order to break the cycle, I had to know what the cycle was, right? I had to know where my Achilles heel were. I had to know me, had to get to know me a little bit more. And in so doing, I kind of went on an internal journey of discovery. And in order to do that, I set about, getting counseling for my anger, getting counseling for my issues, seeking therapy for, how I was feeling or what I was feeling, trying to understand me. And I recognized from that process, which took maybe 15 or 16 months, that I was maybe longer, maybe about 2 years, that I wasn't to blame. I wasn't to blame. I no longer claimed victimhood, as my great friend Dana Sardano, in Decoding the Woo Woo says in her book. I no longer claimed victimhood that I had been claiming up to that point, but I actually began to take control of my life. They actually took responsibility for the bit that was mine, and I do take responsibility. And I recognize that there are bits of my life that I've made really bad mistakes on, and I take responsibility for those mistakes, but they're decisions that I made in the past. They don't have to affect my present, and they've got nothing to do with where I'm going in the future, right? They're part of me, and I accept them.
Yep.
So
Well, we all make the decision, the best decisions we can with the tools and the knowledge that we have
and
at
what
the
we
time.
got, right? And what we
Right.
got, yeah. So, and there comes a time when you got to stop beating yourself up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to lay down that stick. You got to lay down that flail. You got to lay down that cleese. You got to lay down that dagger, and pick up a blanket and pick up, something that gives you comfort and gives you joy and gives you hope and gives you happiness. And that was a big learning curve for me. I also, had to come to terms with my past and with my history, and come to terms with the fact that I went through a really traumatic period in my life. The fact that I experienced PTSD. The fact that I experienced indirect sexual abuse. The fact that I experienced abuse in some of its forms, and it's a difficult process to begin to accept that, to begin to admit that for yourself, but it's also a real freeing event, because when you do, therein lies the support, therein lies the care, therein lies the friendship, therein lies the love that you receive from other people, and you recognize too that you're not alone, that you haven't experienced this alone, and other people have experienced it, and there are a set of tools and tips and programs out there that will help you get better. And pretty much that's been my game. And don't get me wrong, in between times, there's been some really good times, some really bad times, some really difficult times, some really challenging times. It's life, right? Life happens.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's just the roller coaster that we're all riding on, right? And
100%.
Well, you're always going to have good and bad times.
You're always gonna have good and bad times, but that support element and that being able to not constantly blame yourself when a bad time comes, right?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely. And have a bag of tools at hand, which will not beat you up, but which will support you, is a lot better than having a stick that will beat you, right?
Yeah.
Because predominantly, if anybody going to beat us, we're going to beat ourselves, right? And it's about not picking up that stick, but picking up something else. It's like picking up a book, or it's like picking up a cell phone, or it's like picking up, or reaching out and asking for people for help, right? And I did that, and and I received an awful lot of care and an awful lot of support. And then I came to about 2012, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice to spread the love a little bit, and spread the joy and spread the hope, with other people. So up until that point, my work situation was pretty temporary. I had a number of temporary contracts that I would work for a while and then I'd be laid off. Work for a while, then I'd be laid off. Work for a while, then be laid off. So when I got to my 7th cycle of this, I thought to myself, there has to be a better way. There just has to be a better way, right?
Yeah.
So I sat down over one weekend with a nice bottle of Red Beaujolais, and I said to myself,
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah, if I was creating the perfect company, if I was creating the perfect mission and vision for me, what would it be? And over the space of that weekend, I came up with a potential you project, and I came up with a mission and vision for the potential you project, and it became, that pretty much my aim, my mission and vision is to try to get to the hardest to reach people who struggle like me, the people who have nobody on their side, the people who are really struggling with where they are and what they're doing and what they're about and don't know themselves and really would need that initial lift up in terms of support, right? But also remove some of the barriers that people have to accessing this support. Be really available for people, be really accessible for people, and get right into the heart of communities where people could access the support, become aware of their support, and get supported and become supported. And
I think that's something that's really important too, is
Yeah.
that, people don't always know where to go, right? Like the
No.
asking for help is already difficult when you feel isolated, right? Like, so to reach
Yeah.
out and ask for help is already difficult when you don't know that there are places you can go, right? Or what resources are available.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And in my case, I didn't know where to go the first time around, right? And I thought to myself, I wouldn't like anybody, even my worst enemy, to go through what I went through, right? Because I can talk about it today, and I'm, this side up today, and I'm alive today because of the grace and support and love and care and consideration and compassion that people have showed me. Now, isn't that nice to return the favor, and give some of that back, right? So one thing led to another, and in 2012, I set up the Potential You project with that aim and mission and vision. And since that time, I probably have supported in excess of about 5,000 to 6,000 people.
I
Very
love
nice.
it. That's so awesome. So I like talk a little bit then about what you do and how you go about like providing the support for people, and like definitely talk about where folks can find you too. I mean, we'll share that out in the description, links and everything. But because again, this is something that, a lot of people might be going through, that situation where you have seen life as being only this one thing for so long, and you kind of don't know how to transition or make a pivot out of it. Right.
Yeah. And look, Haleigh, I want to be clear, and Joe, I want to be clear. Mental health and well-being has no state boundary line, right? It has no borders. This is a global, reality for people. I've just come from a conference today.
Oh, very cool.
Towards Zero Suicide, joined the Dots tour, which has been running in a part of the UK, and finished up in Liverpool in the UK today. And I've been part of that support group because I'm fairly passionate and a fairly strong ambassador for well-being and mental health support for people who are really struggling, particularly those people who feel the only way is to maybe consider taking their own life. And I'm a big advocate, and I've become a big ambassador for, I think there is another way. I think if people can reach the hope, and if people can hear the message that somebody cares about them, then that becomes a mainstay. And if that prevents them from taking their own life or injuring themselves in some way, then we've done something really good.
Right.
And I recognize that through the pandemic that we've all been through in the last, since 2020 to 23, right? And we're just the other side of that. That's left a mark in our hearts and our souls and our minds and our communities. And my role as a wellbeing consultant is to basically dip the oil stick in the engine of where people's well-being and mental health is at the moment. Firstly, asking questions around their mental health and how they are, asking the question, how are you, to somebody, right? The initial answer you'll get back is, Haleigh, if I asked you how you were feeling today, what would you tell me?
Oh, you always just, I'm good. Doing
Yeah,
well.
you're good, right?
Yeah.
So
Good.
So what does that say, right? That
Right?
tells
Nothing. Tells
that
you
tells me
nothing.
absolutely nothing, right? And then you say, okay,
Mhm.
if you then say to somebody, well, I can see you've been struggling a bit, and you're not been turning up, and you're not been showing up, and you've been a little bit down in the dumps, and I've seen you sad, and maybe you're not been keeping yourself too well, and so, out of love and out of care and out of support, I ask you again, is everything okay with you? And at that point, people normally, would be at the point of saying it's none of your business, or
Yeah, right.
or can we sit down and have a chat? And even the people that tell you it's none of your business will come back to me and they'll go, right, thank you for asking me that question, and actually, can we have a chat?
Right, because not everybody can. It's again like when you're feeling isolated and you put up those walls, right? Like even when someone does ask the question, you don't always feel safe to like go ahead and respond, right?
You don't, right? And you test the water with people. We do it as human beings all the time. Or you want to test the relationship. We want to test the ground when we're walking upon, because the essential question you're asking in your head is, can this person manage the information I'm going to tell them?
Right.
And are they genuine?
Yeah. Are they
Right.
genuine? Can I trust them, right?
Absolutely.
Are they just going to say, am I just going to tell them they're going to, all right, yeah, and go on to the next thing? Or are they going to go, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about it?
Right.
I am hopefully one of those people, because of my own experience and my transparency and authenticity and honesty, that I can sit down with somebody and go, look, I recognize where you are. I can't share your experience because your experience is your own, but I can recognize some of the, the pain points and where you are, because I've been there myself. And then I'll share my own story with them, just in the same way I've shared with you, right? And it's a bit of a story, right? It's a bit of a story, right? It's not your average cup of tea story that you would sit down and talk to somebody about. And, and even in sharing it with you and Jonny, I've summarized it quite extensively, right?
Right, but it's a valuable thing when you're able to be vulnerable and share those painful or difficult things about your own
100%.
story, because it makes it okay for them to share, right? And
100%. 100%.
And how many people in our childhood, like probably more so because you're a little older than we are, but probably
how dare you, Jonny?
I know, right?
I am a little bit older, but I don't feel old, right? I don't.
Well, that's what matters. That's exactly.
Then I'm 120 years old. Apparently, I can't even get out of bed half the time. But how many times have you heard? How many times have you heard in your childhood, "Suck it up"?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How do you get somebody that's heard that their entire life to get help? That's kind of like, that's my $1 million question for like promoting like mental health and like well-being.
Yeah.
How do you get how do you get that person to admit that they have a problem?
Okay. And my answer to that would be, in order to move the person, in order to engage with the person, right? You have to engage with the person at a level, right? And the person has to identify firstly that they can trust you, and that's about building relationship, and that's going to take time, right? That's going to take time. We're not talking wham bam, thank you, ma'am, 5-minute conversation. that may take hours of your time initially to get into a position of creating a psychological space of safety so they can begin to open up, first of all. Right? And that might take weeks initially. It might take moments. It might take minutes. It may take hours. Don't know it because every person is different. But once you get to that sacred place, once you're able to hold that space of psychological safety for somebody and say, look, I know it's not okay at the moment, but it's going to be okay. Let's work together to make it better. Then you're able to start to work on that messaging, because the tape going off in your head is, right, I'm shit, I'm worthless, I've got no self-esteem, I've got no self-confidence, I hate myself, I hate everything I am, I hate everything about myself. And you're pretty much not deserving of this love and support and care.
Well, and the other thing too, I think, with a lot of because when you get that ticker tape running, the other thing is I don't want to get my ick on other people, right? No. So you have that element of it too, where it's well, I don't want to spew my nonsense at you, and then you have because sometimes too, it's well, I recognize other people have other things going on in their own life that they're not talking about too, so I don't want to go throw my stuff at them because I can't, because it's again they may not be able to handle anything I have going on because they might have their own things going on. And so there's, again, that added layer of just one more reason to not want to go express that.
And not want to open up. Yeah. And again, it's about building that relationship with somebody to say that, look, you can trust me. I hear you. I see you. I identify with you, and I'm listening, and I'm here to support you and care for you for as long as you need that support up until you're feeling better, right? It's not, as I say, a slowly or a quickly scenario. It may be elongated over many weeks, months, years, and in some cases, I have clients I still work with who I'm still supporting, who still need that level of support, not to the same intensity or extent, but still happy to know that there's somebody there on the other side of the line or other side of the phone or other side of the Zoom that are able to support them if indeed they get into struggle, because well-being is a journey and mental health is a journey. There are bits where you feel absolutely on top of the world and bits when life will happen, you'll feel down in the dumps. And my role is to just be there as that constant hum of support, so that they can tap into that at any stage in their journey.
Right. And I love that, because that is, it's an important thing, I think, to acknowledge that support, support does have to be a constant thing. It's a good times and bad times kind of thing. And that's where so many people, I think, fall in the having such a hard time trusting people, right? Is that you do have some people who are going to be the kind of, I don't know what you would want to call them, but the people who are in rescue mode and who just want to be supportive when you are just in a really bad space, right? And then there are the kind of fair weather friends who just want to be supportive when things are good, right? But that's what it is, I think, that a lot of people are looking for, and what does slow us down from opening up is that idea of a constant support, that whether it's a good time, whether it's a bad time, still here for you, still ready 100%. To talk about it, ready to celebrate 100%. Your wins, ready to talk about your challenges,
for as long as you need, for as long as you need. There's no end date for me. My end date when I'm working with clients is when they feel ready enough to move on, and even then they'll still say, "But I can come back to you, right? I can speak to you again, right?" And absolutely, right? I actually become, brother, some another mother for a lot of people.
Yeah. Right? Well, that's a beautiful thing, right? And that's the thing that I love about this whole podcasting thing too, is you're building a community even when you're meeting new people like this. And it's that idea of creating, open support for people. Because even just these kinds of conversations, right? Just putting these kind of conversations out and creating content like this, it does give people something to connect to, right? So that people who are struggling and do need help, not just that they recognize okay, here's somebody whose resources I could check out, but just to have the conversations and just to have that sense of, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who has these of intrusive thoughts. I'm not, right.
And there is no border. There are no boundaries. there is,
and if you're willing to look for it, you can find common ground.
100%,
You know,
100%. You know, and I've spoken to people from the UK, I've spoken to people around the world, I've spoken to people from America. You know, mental health, we are human beings together, right?
Yeah.
We're all on a journey together, and some of us are getting there, some of us are a little far behind, some of us are all in the journey, right? You know, I once heard the saying, you know, we're all on the same boat. Actually, we're not. We're all on different boats at different levels. Some of us are like superliners, we don't feel the rough seas, right? Some of us are on small dinghies, and we feel the seas pretty roughly, right? And it's about being that lighthouse. And somebody succinctly put it the other day in this tour, being a harbour of hope for some people. You know, it's what people need. Somewhere where they can go and rest and lay their burden down and feel truly, authentically, transparently, and honestly listened to. It's a powerful place to be. And you know, I hold a really sacred space for people, you know, when I do that in terms of my own work. And you know, I recognize that in being a mental health practitioner, and being a mental health supporter, in being, you know, an active ambassador for Zero Suicide Society, and for supporting suicide prevention, not only in the UK, but actually throughout the world, right? Throughout the world. It's massive that we were able to reach out to people, but also the other part of my work is skilling other people up to be able to do the work that I do. You know, have the confidence to be able to ask questions that I do.
And that's, I think, you know, maybe a little bit, as much as the pandemic was something that, like, it's something that shook us up in a good way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was awful, but
it was
forcing all of us to sort of become more global, in the sense of, you know, look at how podcasting has really taken off, and look at how like the digital world, and like how people interact. But it's a good thing, because then the work that someone like you is doing becomes less local, becomes more global, and more people have an opportunity to reach out to someone that they connect or resonate with, right? And that's another one of the things we talk about on the podcast a lot, the idea that, like, your voice matters because someone's going to resonate with you more than someone else, even if your message is similar, even if what your service is offering might be similar. It's valuable still that you offer it. It's valuable that you're out there, because you might be the one somebody else connects to when the others can't get through to that person. And you never know when that's going to happen. Right. And so, like, that is kind of the blessing, though, of COVID and of the pandemic, is that we all were forced to become more interconnected digitally. And now we have these opportunities to connect in different ways to people we otherwise wouldn't have been able to. And so the ability to build a supportive community in whatever pocket of consciousness you feel, you know, you resonate with and belong to, we're able to do that now in an easier way, right? And so
absolutely 100%. And I'm a real advocate, and a really passionate about making those connections with people. You know, in essence, telling people, in the words of my great friend and supporter Suzanne Baines, who runs a small little charitable company in Scotland, but her message is global insofar as she tells everybody she comes into contact with, you matter always. You don't need to earn that. You don't need to work for that. Actually, it's innate because of your humanity, because you do matter always. You are born to matter always. You were born with it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to work on it. You have it. It's the golden ticket. You matter always. You know, and people have forgot that message, because we are filled with so much negativity, and we're
because hating yourself is profitable, isn't it? You know, because when you hate yourself, then you consume to try to fill that void. You know, lose the weight, get the makeup, get the whatever you have to get done to look young and fit and happy again, so you can pretend on the outside, sort of thing, right?
It's cool. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. But equally, you know, there comes a time in everybody's life when they have to stand in front of the mirror, and you know, and once you see yourself in full awareness, then, you know, in the words of Dana Sardano again, once you see Grandma naked, you can never go back from that image, right? You know, once you once you see yourself in full awareness, you can never walk back from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about having that support available right there and then, you know, to support you through that to get to the other side. So you come out hopefully more adjusted, more aware, more supported, more cared for, more loved, and knowing that you matter always, which is ultimately, you know, my mission and vision in life. And I'm delighted to be able to not only share that vision myself, but, you know, again, as the closure of that tour, that gig that I was at this afternoon, clearly pointed out there was a group of about 50 or 60 people in that room today, all co-collaborators in terms of that mission and vision. And, you know, I walked away from that going, you know, yeah, I've been doing this stuff day in, day out, but I'm not alone. I'm not my own. I've got other people to support me. And also, in terms of the work that I do on a daily basis, I'm surrounded by a great team of support. So, you know, hearing the things I hear and sharing the things that I hear, you know, ultimately, you know, for me, and it's very important to state that when I am supporting somebody, be it an individual or group, that there's a protocol of confidentiality surrounding that people can feel that they can trust me, that the information won't go any further, you know, and I hold a sacred space for them. However, you know, I do have a duty of care protocol in place that when I do become aware that somebody's liable to be actively suicidal or in need of active support, then my duty of care protocol would be initiated to contact an emergency service to allow them to get the help and support that they need in order for them to medically or pharmacologically, you know, or psychologically receive the support that they need at that particular time.
Yeah.
And I do want to I want to thank you for being somebody out in the world, being a lighthouse doing that, because it is a valuable service that you provide, just being a human who's willing to talk to other humans who need a little bit of help on their human ride.
Yeah, and look, I'm nothing special, right? I'm just a guy, just a bloke, you know, who's had a lived experience. But through my own lived experience, I've kind of innately aware that yeah, I could keep that experience to myself and do nothing with it. But you know, I prefer rather to share my experience with other people so that other people can be encouraged by my words and maybe listen to my words and go, do you know what? I can resonate with that, or I can resonate with that, or I get that and I understand that, and maybe it would be a good point to, you know, connect with this guy and maybe have a chat. And if you want to, you can reach out and connect with me. You know, I've got my website, seamuscorry.co.uk. Absolutely. I've got my YouTube feed at Seamus Corry PYP, sorry. And I've also got a Spotify channel. Would you believe that, Haleigh?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Spotify channel, all right. I'm on Spotify. Can you believe that?
Oh, that's crazy.
I can't actually believe I'm saying it, but I'm on Spotify, where you'll be able to pick up episodes of my Wellbeing with Seamus podcast. And on that podcast, you connect with, you know, similar down to earth people who have had similar experiences to me, who share their experience, who've written about their experiences, who, you know, who have books that detail their experiences. And again, you know, being able to sit down with them and have a chat about where they are and the work that they're doing in that particular field or this particular field, again, resonates really well with me, and hopefully it resonates with the listeners who pick up on my channels, you know, as it does. You know, I know you say to me, and you get it when I say this, but the people who get it will get it, right? The people who don't get it will never get it. Well, the people who
are, the audience who's meant for you will find you, right? And, and that's, again, the thing about this post-pandemic world and the sort of chronically online nature of humans anymore is that, you know, there is a pocket of consciousness on the internet where you belong. There's always a space where you belong. And so whatever your stuff is, if the audience, like whoever's not meant for it, there's a place for you somewhere else. Cool, go find it. The ones who are meant to be here, awesome, join us. Come on in, friends.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know, and you know, we just keep doing what we're doing, right? We keep rolling on. We keep doing what we're doing. We keep getting the message out there. We keep joining the dots. We keep making connections with people, because when people get us, then they get us, right? You know, life doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when people make connections with one another. That's when true life starts, right? And when you get to that place, it's a powerful spot, right? It's like just finding out there's been a whole a group of Tongarians together, all working in isolation.
That have just been in the cosmos, waiting to grab their tongues, coming along and having a good old party time.
100% right.
That's
100% right. You know, and
until we put out the call, how are they supposed to know that they have a house? Come on over. How do you know that House Tongarian has been here for you this whole time?
There you go. I mean, it's another Game of Thrones kind of series.
It is.
The House of Tongarian.
That's right. Yeah. We are House Tongarian in the Tongaverse. See, now you're gonna have to come hang out with us for a while. We're gonna start this. We got to start Tongarian Tavern. I'm gonna make you come. Like, y'all are gonna come hang out with me and Jeff. We're gonna be bartenders of Tongarian Tavern, and everyone gets to come in, right? And you get to tell us your troubles, but you have to be in character.
Absolutely. Do you know what? And do you know what? You got to have a tongue and coke with that, don't you?
You gotta have a Tong and Coke. That's one of our most popular cocktails is a Tong and Coke. I love it. Love it.
So in essence, right? In essence, you know, to sum up, who am I? I'm Seamus Corry. What am I? I'm a wellbeing consultant, mental health practitioner. What does that mean in essence? I'm here to listen. I'm here to support you. I'm here to look out for you. And you know, and if you need to reach out, you know, pick up an email, pick up a text message, or pick up a comment and reach out to me, because you know you'll get support on the other side if you're struggling.
And again, thank you so much for being that person and for welcoming anyone out in the Tongaverse who needs to reach out. Go ahead and reach out to Seamus.
Or any universe, right? Or any universe.
That's right. Anyone, anywhere. Reach on out. You can be Arcturian.
Any galaxy, anywhere. And I know, you know, in any multi-dimensional space that you find yourself in, you know, reach out and, you know, and grab it, right?
Reach out and grab Seamus. He will help you out and support you through your journey if you need it.
Can I also clarify, you only speak English, so if you're speaking to me in an alien language, I won't be able to understand it. So it's very important that you speak to me in English.
Right. Whatever translation mechanisms, technologies you have, do please make sure you implement those.
100%, yeah. Just put the plug in and put the adapter in for
Well,
English.
It's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's the fish in your ear, right? The Babel fish. Like,
that's right.
Give me a Babel fish and we'll be good to roll.
And I'll leave you with a lovely phrase that I picked up from Field of Dreams. I don't know, you guys are probably too young to remember.
No, not at all.
Why? I love that movie, Field of Dreams, with Kevin Costner. You know,
Kevin Costner.
Robin Williams was initially supposed to do that role that Kevin Costner had. Do you know that?
That's crazy.
I did not know that. No.
Yeah, and Robin and Kevin Costner had asked the director because he found out about it. Why did you pick me and not Robin Williams? Because Robin was more successful than Kevin Costner was at that particular time. And he said, well, I needed somebody, you know, when they looked at you, right? There was a bit of doubt in you, whereas Robin would have accepted that full on. So he wanted somebody who would struggle with the whole concept, but who got it in the end. And the beauty about that movie, and the beauty phrase from that is, build it and they will come. And
if you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come. You know, yes, there will be voices in the corn. There will be people there will be people who are out there who are ready to listen and ready to support you, and just come along, right?
Just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep being you and putting it out there.
Absolutely.
The people will come.
Haleigh and Joe, it's been an amazing ride this afternoon.
It's been fun, man.
Seamus, this has been great. It's been so fun. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I would love to have you back again for another chat.
100%, yeah. And I'm definitely coming to the Tongarian
Tavern. You absolutely have to.
Put an invite in the diary. I'm there, mate. I'm there.
Like it's been recorded. That's basically now you're contractually obligated.
And basically, if you look at that. If you look at that, that says, Seamus, you matter always, right? That's my own individual cup, given to me by one particular organisation I worked with here in the UK. They took it on so much to get everybody a cup with that message on it. And
I love it.
If I could give everybody a cup who's listening to this today and watching this today, I'm just telling them, you matter always, all right?
You matter always.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Seamus Corry, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Yeah, it's
having
been
me.
great.
You've been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi again, friends. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the No Small Stories podcast. Do check out the links below in the description so you can find more information on this episode's guest. And if you'd like to support more episodes of the No Small Stories podcast, you can become a patron. Find us on patreon.com/NoSmallStories. Do also follow us on Instagram at No Small Stories Podcast. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a review, do all those wonderful things that you awesome listeners can do. Until next time, friends, remember, no matter how small you start, your story is always a big deal to us. Special thanks to the Parapost Network for the support of their community. Check out all the great podcasts on the Parapost Network on Facebook.